with all of that said, let's jump straight into our stories here because we have a lot to cover today. Bitcoin now legal tender in El Salvador, marking world's first. In a show of support, crypto proponents are buying $30 worth of Bitcoin to commemorate the occasion, colloquially known as #Bitcoin Day. I want to see it in chat and on Twitter. Bitcoin is now officially legal tender in El Salvador 3 months after the Bitcoin law passed the country's legislation. While the move marks a world first, El Salvador's president Nayib Bukele said in a tweet that the Bitcoin process in the country comes with a learning curve. We must break paradigms of the past, Bukele said. El Salvador has the right to move towards the first world. They passed this law on June 9th by supermajority, with 62 members voting in favor, 19 voting in opposition, and 3 abstained. This will be the first nation in the world to adopt Bitcoin as its formal legal tender. And Tim, one of the things that we've been seeing happen a lot lately are a ton of different stories about protests going on in El Salvador, but we've seen a lot of the people in our comments say that those are fake protests. Now, something that we have to keep in mind is that the people that are in our chat are obviously going to have a bias towards cryptocurrency in the same way that we do. Yeah. I'm not on the ground in El Salvador. I don't know what's going on, but it seems to me that the officials in the parliament or the Congress down there, the legislature down there, are very much in favor of this. And it seems like the majority of the people that we've heard from and talked to are very much in favor of this. And finally, Bitcoin is not being forced upon the people of El Salvador. You can still use the US dollar in El Salvador. Merchants and the government just have to accept it. So what do you think about all the FUD that's been surrounding this?
Absolutely. So building off of what you said, what we've seen in comments, what we've seen, this is actually really cool having the camera angle like right below your face.
I know, you can actually look right at me and at the camera.
What we see is not only, I think I've seen accusations that there are people that are outside of the country that come in, are being paid to protest. And as well, they're paying people, because that study we were talking about yesterday said that it was like, I can't remember the exact number. It was a high number saying that this many amount of people in El Salvador do not want this law to pass. But then went on to say, well, at the same time, a high percentage of those people didn't actually really know what Bitcoin was and how to utilize it. So what I've seen people saying is that what they're doing is taking some of the people who have no idea what they're doing. They're paying them like $10 just to join the parade. And so it's like, even the people in El Salvador who don't like it, they don't know why they don't like it, other than, well, I now have $10 in my pocket saying I don't like it. So I am not in El Salvador. There's always multiple sides of the story, but I'm inclined to believe that this is nothing more than massive FUD and massive, like big institutions who are very against Bitcoin overall and its success, especially those in favor of seeing successful US dollar. I think they're the ones behind this whole push. I will say, and I know we talked about this before the show, Jeb. I do not want to whitewash and take away any injustices that have ever happened in El Salvador through the current government.
Absolutely.
I am sure it is not a perfect government. I think we've even seen signs it's not perfect. Here is what is really cool about Bitcoin, is that even if this bill is being put in for an evil reason, even if this president is corrupt and he's trying to control the people, he's doing the wrong thing. He's letting a genie out of a bottle that he will not be able to put back in.
He's doing the wrong thing for himself.
And I'm saying, like, if he thinks he's going to gain more power by using Bitcoin for legal tender for his people, he is completely wrong. And this is what Frederick Hayek said, and I've read that quote several times, where he talks about to get the power back from the government, from this one entity, we have to find a way to summon, in some sly way, sneak past them and institute something that is irreversible, that will take their power away. And that's exactly what Bitcoin is. So whether he has good intentions or bad intentions, in this case, the end result is amazing for the freedom of his people.
Yeah, absolutely. Because right now, the El Salvadorans are using the U.S. dollar, or up until today, everyone in El Salvador is using the U.S. dollar as their currency, and now they have the option to use Bitcoin. Why is it a problem that they're using the U.S. dollar? Because the U.S. dollar has undergone massive inflation in the last 18 months and has lost nearly 30% of its value. We don't see that as much here in the United States because we're sheltered by all the debt that's being incurred on the federal level and all of the stimulus that's being put into the economy. But that isn't happening to El Salvador. They're just seeing the amount of U.S. dollars in circulation skyrocket, meaning that the value of their currency is going down, which hurts their nation because they don't have sovereignty over their own currency and they can't have any faith in it. That's why Bitcoin in El Salvador is such a big deal. So yes, we do want to address here that everything that the current government in El Salvador has ever done is not all that good. I'm not even going to weigh in on that and get into El Salvadoran politics because I am not from El Salvador. It's not my place to do that. But what I can tell you is this. We're aware that everything's not perfect down there. We're not condoning every single thing the El Salvadoran government has ever done. I just think that them adopting Bitcoin is one of the best things that you could possibly do for the nation. And by the way, we're going to be doing some Bitcoin and Cardano technical analysis a little bit later on in the stream. We've got to get through this story first, though, so make sure you smash that like button. And I want to see hashtag Bitcoin Day in the chat. I'm really excited for this. Moving right along here, there is another piece of this story, and that is that El Salvador has just bought 400 Bitcoin ahead of making it a legal currency. Pause.
400 total?
400. El Salvador, they're going to buy more.
Okay.
They're going to buy more. They're going to buy 120 million. They bought 10 million so far. But the interesting thing about this is an entire nation is adopting Bitcoin. And how much did they buy? $10 million. That's not because El Salvador is like skimping out. That's not the point here. The point here is Bitcoin is worth so much that when an entire sovereign nation decides to get in on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, 400 Bitcoin is a lot to them. Let's read on. El Salvador bought its first 400 Bitcoins on Monday, and President Nayib Bukele pledged to buy a lot more ahead of adopting cryptocurrency as legal tender. El Salvador will become the currency on Tuesday. This is obviously the biggest story that we've seen since 2008 when it was actually created, and in January 3rd, 2009 when it was first mined. 200 Bitcoins had a market value of about $10 million last night, so they've bought about $20 million worth of it. And then they are also going to be buying up to $120 million, and they're also going to be loading Bitcoin wallets called Shivo, which, if my sources are correct, means cool in Spanish. So they have a wallet named Cool, so that people will hopefully buy it. That's the government trying to get you in on a new social program, so it's got to be marketed and branded really well. I can't really talk because of everything that we do, but nevertheless, what we can see is that they're going to be giving out $30 wallets to people with Bitcoin on them, and they are now buying Bitcoin. One of the things that is interesting to me is the fact that they're just doing this right now. I would have thought that they would have bought the Bitcoin a while back, but they're actually just buying the Bitcoin right now. They're going to be buying $120 million worth. So far, they've only bought about $10 to $20 million worth. But the thing that's really interesting here to me is the fact that the entire nation of El Salvador is looking at buying somewhere on the order of the low thousands of Bitcoin. An entire nation. Like, that. Am I crazy, Tim? Like, isn't that nuts that an entire country is going to be adopting a new currency as their sovereign national currency, and they're only going to buy 1,000 of them? That's how valuable and scarce Bitcoin is? Like, that's insane to me. That's incredible. I know people with 400 Bitcoin. Like, that's not that much Bitcoin, to be quite honest with you. That's really cool, and it speaks to the scarcity of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and why we should be invested in them. So on my final point here before we move on and talk a little bit about South and Central America adoption of Bitcoin is this. Why does this matter? You've probably heard me say this several times, but I want to wrap this all up together and make it apparent for anyone who might just be tuning in, or maybe you've been living under a rock and you're just now hearing about this, or maybe you're newer to cryptocurrency and you've only been here for a month or two and you didn't know this was going on. Here's why this matters. El Salvador adopting Bitcoin is going to automatically bring online between 1 and 8 million new users. The population of El Salvador, if I remember correctly, is around 8.6 million. When El Salvador adopts Bitcoin, that entire nation is going to fast track its complete and total adoption of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, which is going to bring online at least 1 million users of Bitcoin pretty much overnight. The reason that matters is because those people transacting on the Bitcoin network is going to increase the amount of transactions that Bitcoin processes, which is going to lead to an increasing in value of Bitcoin, because the more transactions that occur on Bitcoin, well, the more valuable it is, because those people that are using the transactions are also holding on to some of the Bitcoin, but also because the more transactions happen on Bitcoin, the more miners have to get involved, and the more miners have to get involved, the more money the miners make, which means that the mining industry grows exponentially, which means that the hash rate on Bitcoin goes up, and we know based on-chain and fundamental metrics that when the hash rate on Bitcoin goes up, that Bitcoin's price action normally follows. We see that the hash rate graph looks a lot like the Bitcoin price action chart in the last 12 months. So El Salvador adopting Bitcoin is going to have major fundamental and technical implications on the price. It's going to cause a major increase in the price. And in the same way that when a bunch of people have a run on the banks, and all the money runs out of the banks, all of a sudden the money that is in the banks is a lot more valuable because of how scarce it is. We're going to see the same thing happen on Bitcoin. It's going to become more scarce because more people are using it, more of it's going to be taken out of circulation. The stock-to-flow ratio will effectively increase, and Bitcoin will become more valuable for that reason. But now what we need to figure out is what are the surrounding nations of El Salvador going to be doing in response to this? I'm really curious to see what the next steps are. I'm always this kind of person where I hit a goal, I hit a milestone, and I spend 5 minutes saying, oh yeah, that was cool, what's next? I've always been a what's next kind of guy. So now that El Salvador is doing this, we're going to keep you guys up to date on this, but I want to know what happens next.